Kia ora, everyone. How's that? Better? Yep. Kia ora, everyone. Ko Stephanie Banbury Toko Ingoa. I'm the Senior Advisor for Community Funding and would like to welcome you to the first Community Funding Assessment Panel meeting. I will chair the meeting today until we appoint the chairperson, which is point 4 on our agenda. Let's start with our opening karakia. Whakataka te hou ki te uru, whakataka te hou ki te tonga, kia mā kina ki uta, kia mā taratara ki tai. Ihi aki ana te atakura, he teo, he huka, he huhu, te hei Māori ora. So apologies from Councillor Epiha. Can we get someone to move that one?
I'll move that.
Move Councillor Hassan and Councillor McInnes. Any urgent general business? No urgent general business. I would now like to call for nominations for the chairperson of the Community Funding Assessment Panel.
I nominate Bob. Councillor Mugford, sorry.
So move that the committee appoints Councillor Mugford as the chairperson of the Community Funding Assessment Panel. Councillor McInnes and Councillor Hassan. All in favour? Okay, carried. I'll now hand over the meeting to our new chairperson, Councillor Mugford.
Thank you, I think. Okay, nominations for
Sorry?
You still here?
Yep.
Okay, I nominate Councillor Hassan.
Second that, all those in favour? Carried, thank you. Creative Committee, Communities Committee, we need a representative for that.
I'll move Councillor McInnes.
And I'll second that. Okay, all those in favour?
Aye.
Carried, thank you. And also the Sports New Zealand World Travel Fund.
I'll nominate Councillor Epiha. Oh, sorry.
That's fine.
Is it who? Yeah, I was going to nominate Councillor Mugford. Do you want to do it, Councillor Mugford?
That's something that I have done for a long time. I'll
Okay.
continue if the committee wants me to. It's up to the committee, up to you two.
Well, you move and I'll second Councillor Mugford. Yep.
Okay, all those in favour, against, carried. Thank you for
Aye.
that. Confirmation of the dates for assessment panel meetings. Any comments? Someone moves that we accept these dates.
I'll move. Yep. So these are just for clarification, these are the dates that are on the screen now that we
Yes.
had by email earlier.
Yes.
Yep. I'm happy to.
Yes.
Go
So we're going to move into seconder. And you, all those in favour, against, carried. I've just got one comment that how are these actually going to fit in with council meetings? Has that been discussed?
Yeah, we've checked those with the governance team and they're on different days than council meetings. So we just need to decide on a time that suits everyone for those dates, if you want to do that now for the whole year or can do them the month prior.
The month prior might be easier because we'll have a better idea of what timings for briefings and workshops by then?
Okay. Deborah, have you,
Sorry?
you happy with, doing a year or just doing the month prior for our meetings?
Can you just go back and what's the month? I'm actually on leave.
If you're on leave, it will just be a matter of an apology for that meeting or the next meeting, so I don't see that as a problem for overall.
Right.
It'll be, that's like Shane today, is an apology, and that will happen.
Okay. Yep.
So we have the dates and times for the rest of 2024. We have dates for 2025, just no times on those days yet.
So, look, it suits me as long as it's not a Thursday afternoon or a Friday.
No.
So next year they're all Wednesdays.
They're all Wednesdays?
Mhm.
Thank you.
Okay. That's all. Endorsement of the funding schedules that we have 16 of. I'll move to accept those. So the seconder.
I'll second it then.
Okay, thank you. All those in favour? Okay, carried. Thank you. And we go on to the review of applications for individuals and team funding. If we go through each one and we can move them as we go, if you're happy with that.
Yeah.
Or do you want to go through and sort out whether you think they're right and then come back, whichever way the committee want to do it. I've been on committees that have done it either way. My preference would be to vote on each one as we go through.
Yep, I'll second that. Yep,
Okay.
that's fine.
Okay, there's the Ellesmere Rockers, which is $750 allowed for.
Quick question. If we have a potential conflict of interest, do we raise it at the time that we discuss them or initially right at the beginning?
My apologies. Conflict of interest, if anyone has any conflicts.
I don't think it's really, it's more of a to be aware my children attend one of the schools that is applying for Jump Jam funding. However, neither of my kids at that school are in the Jump Jam team.
I don't consider that a conflict, but thank you for noting it. And confirmation of the financial statement, which is 41,350. So would someone move that we accept that
Hang on.
fund?
Are we going through each individual? Sorry, I'm a little bit lost here.
Right, if you go to number 7.
We've got Ellesmere, you said about Ellesmere Rockers as the first application.
I apologise, I was getting ahead of myself. So if we're on 7 and we're on to the confirmation of financial statement, which is B. So has anyone any problem with those 16 groups? You happy? You happy, Deborah?
With the allocated funding that's allocated to the 16 groups,
Yes.
funding groups.
Okay, would someone like to move that?
So to approve this in full, it would be good to go through them. No, we're going through those.
But I presumed it was.
Sorry.
We get the financial statement.
Yeah.
So the financial statement is on the screen.
Yeah.
So where we currently stand with this fund first.
Okay, so the fund, sorry, I can't read it. The fund has how many?
41,350.
41,350 for the rest of this financial year.
Yep.
That's if all of these applications are approved.
No, that's how it currently stands.
That's how it comes. That's the current financial position.
Mhm.
That's available for till the 30th of June.
Correct.
Yes.
And this pool of money. Okay. I've got to start somewhere, so I'll move that if that's the funding available, then.
Okay.
Yep.
And you'll second
that.
Okay.
Yep.
All those in favour, that's carried.
Aye.
Thank you. And we've got the the consideration of applications received, which there were 15 of. And we're back to where I thought I was before. Ellesmere Rockers and the staff have looked at $750. Is there any comment?
Not for that one. I'll move that.
Okay, Deborah,
Okay.
that, all those in favour, that's carried, thank you.
I
Hamish Henderson, $500.
I have a query with the Hamish Henderson and Joe Cookson.
Yep.
Because both of their applications include a letter that states that they are part of a team,
Yes.
that they've applied as individuals.
Yes.
Just wondering, any thoughts around that, to be honest?
I guess we're just taking the applications on face value as they come in, so they've been considered as individuals.
Mm.
What would happen if what would happen if the whole team was to do that individually?
Which has happened in the past with some of the other.
For some of the other applications that are sitting here, I've got questions around.
Yep.
Sorry, I have questions around where we've got teams and we've got 16 participants in a team and we're looking at allocating them $1,500. Whereas if these two are part of the same team and they're playing as individuals, then they automatically will get $1,500 for two. So it's just looking at the equity issue of individuals applying when they're actually part of a team. Do we actually have a policy around this when you're doing the assessment?
We've got some guidelines that we look at around individuals versus teams and how many people are benefiting and things like that. But it's definitely something we could look into further.
Right. Well, most of the other applicants, you're looking at 500 and 500, which is actually 1,000 for these two people.
Yep.
And what would they get if they were a part of a team as per the guidelines?
It's 1,500, isn't it, for a team? On an average.
Yeah.
Yeah, 500, yeah. But it appears to be, it's like 500 for, the figures I'm looking at here, looks like 500 for individuals and 1,500, that's not exact, but 1,500 for teams.
Until we get to something that we're actually allocating 1,500, 750 for. And then some, we're allocating 2,000 for.
If we can try and stick to.
Yeah, try and stick to each one, but I'm just saying I think there's some anomalies that need to be discussed in the guidelines about the appropriate amount of funding that we're actually giving to these applicants.
So the way we've looked at it is domestic travel versus international and number of people, so kind of 4 to 8 in a team or 8 plus. We haven't looked at a team under 3 people. So yeah, maybe we need to look at the guidelines, and if we are looking at a per person amount, then maybe the individuals need to be less.
Yes.
And I guess the other, with regards to looking at the particular policy, when we've got participation in sports teams overseas, are they actually selected within New Zealand to go there, or do they decide themselves that there's a competition on and they would like to go and we be funded? Because there's a difference if they're actually appointed by, say, the New Zealand Swimming to go to that meet, or they may say, oh, there's a competition on in Australia and I think I'd like to participate, so I'll put in some funding so I can go over there. There is a big difference between the representation at at one level versus I'd like to go at another level.
Yeah, so they are selected, and that we do ask for that with the application form, a letter of support from the organisation that they're representing.
Yeah, and I think that's the sort of thing that we've got to look for in people's applications more and more, because just looking at the total of what's been requested
That's
is let
11,000.
alone recommended, like, we're at serious risk of running out of food,
Money.
Yes,
money by Easter at this rate,
yeah.
Yes.
which is not easy.
See, harking back a bit, but when we were doing funding with the Melbourne Community Board, it was 250 and 1,500, which separated them quite a lot.
Mm.
And these are quite close together.
Mhm.
So, and my fear is the same as Sophie's, is that if you were quite clever with your team, what you would do, you just get them all to put them down as individuals
Mm.
and end up with getting a lot of money. And is there a criteria to stop people doing that?
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, who says they're part of a team and who says they're individual? Yeah.
But that said, in this case, the letter about their appointment to the team is literally, it only mentions those two kids.
Yes,
And they are appointed by New Zealand Snow Sports, and it is an overseas trip.
yes.
Like, it ticks a lot of boxes. So I've actually, 500 is probably actually a good amount, but it's interesting how we've come to those various things and they've ticked those boxes. And what is the implications of that for the other applications?
Yes. Yeah.
Would you like to move something, Sophie?
Sure.
Would you move to 750 or
500.
500?
500 is recommended.
Is this for Hamish? Can I confirm?
This is for Hamish Henderson.
Yeah. Yeah. And then Hugo,
Hamish,
you second that?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favour, against carried. We go on to Hugo, which is $500.
Yeah, hang on a moment. Bear with me. Oh, sorry, this is playing up on me.
You've got that other list?
Yeah, I've got that other list. I'm trying to find, we've got Hugo Witherall, swimming and surf, life-saving trips to
Yeah.
Germany and Poland.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So his letters include one email that says that he's part of the senior performance squad for pool rescue for Surf Life Saving New Zealand, attending the German and Polish Cup. So again,
Again,
been
it's-
selected at a national level.
right.
I think for what he's doing, that's a realistic fund, the
That's-
$500.
Yeah.
So I'll move the $500 for that one, if I have a seconder.
I'll second it.
Okay, thank you. All those in favour, against carried. Okay, and Joe Coxon, we were looking at,
Yep, I'm happy to move that one because it's the
Yep.
same conversation as Hamish, really.
yes,
Mm.
I'll second that. All those in favour, against carried, thank you.
Carrying through the meeting.
Lara, Pritchard,
I am not
Excuse-
keen on that one.
sorry,
I don't believe that we should fund this. It's an extremely expensive course, but what she's described that she would like to do with it I don't think that's something that we should be funding as a council. And also there's very little detail as to employment contribution or whatever community organisations she's working with would be doing to support this. Like the ambition, that just unfortunately we've got a limited pot.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts anyway.
and I agree on that. I'll move that we do not grant that. Do I have a seconder?
I'll second that.
Sophie, all those
Oh.
in favour, against, think.
Aye.
Okay, Lincoln High,
Yeah, hang on.
I think for a team that's realistic. And it's within the guidelines, I would have thought.
Now, I've got a question with regards to this particular application. We've got, the number of people benefiting from this funding is 16. And we have, a recommendation for $1,500 for 16 people to be shared. And then when we come down to the next one, right?
Yeah.
I have a query And I know that one's internal and one's overseas. Just like some clarity around people who it comes back to looking at that policy, about the overseas versus local. And I mean, this one for the number of people for $1,500, I actually don't have a problem with. I think it's more the other applications of where they're all wanting to go to Australia.
Do you want to move the?
I'll move this one.
Yeah.
Mayor, I have an issue with this one in the sense that, again, with the total sum that we have available for the entire year, there was 1 year back when the Rolleston Discretionary Fund existed, that the Rolleston College applied for all of their sports teams to have support to go to the secondary schools competition, the tournament. And that literally took out 2/3 of the entire ward discretionary fund in one hit.
Yeah.
Same in Darfield.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm raising this, because I think in total, I think we've got less money now than we did with the combined discretionary funds because of other decisions that have been made and approved by council. And I'm fine with that. But if we are looking at 4 high schools wanting to send the first 11, first 15 netball team and all the other stuff, basically we turn into a sports fund. And I'm not, so that was where my question was going. I don't know how this fits with the rural travel sports fund. Like that's not something I have any experience with. Should we be referring people to that?
Yeah. The rural travel sports fund is done as it says, it's just done on mileage. And it's a really complex thing that I think council has to look at that as well, because it's really complex when you're sitting there, when you've got all these, got 15 in this team and they do 10,000 Ks, and there's 4 in another team that do 3 times as much. So it's really complex to give them the right amount of money. So, and this is in the same boat as that. Is it something that as a committee or we can ask staff to look at as far as funding?
Yeah, because
this sort of thing, or are they limited? Could there be a limit on X amounts of funds per year or something like that? Because I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah. This is not a high school fund.
And that's the thing, like on face value, this one application is absolutely fine, but the implication is that then we will fund all the other sports teams. Yeah. And then that's it. The money's all gone.
Yeah.
And is this a special sports teams fund? That's the other question you've got to ask yourself. It's individual and teams funds, so it's specifically for sport. Yeah. That's not, because basically we've got other applicants here who are applying that aren't within sport, but they fit in with this criteria. So I would suggest that in actual fact, when you looked at Laura Pritchard and she was put into here, it's either a sports funds that everybody applies for, and where would Lara fit with her application? Would it go to the community?
I don't think we want a sports fund. No. I'm just asking whether perhaps we need some sort of guideline around sports teams.
Especially the rest of them are sports teams.
Maybe even jump jam teams as well, because there's an awful lot of primary schools.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And that was the problem that we actually had in the Springs.
Yeah.
Most of the applications were actually coming in from secondary and primary schools, and predominantly funding. So when you've got other applications that may have been for not for profit, they got the leftovers if there was any money left over. So I agree with Sophie that we really need some clarification around what are these funds for.
Yeah, so the new policy, we can fund schools if it's for activities that are not part of the curriculum, and the individuals and teams fund is the funding schedule that was signed off earlier in the meeting. is what the criteria is. So it's not
Yeah.
just for sports, it's for individuals and teams. Yeah.
Yes.
So how are we going to,
Well, we used to have a guideline around teams that it would be 1,500. And I guess I think I'd like to propose that we make it 500 going forward as a maximum for teams, maybe even a maximum grant overall, to be honest.
yeah,
Because this is such a limited fund.
well,
And that's not thinking specifically for sports, just generally having a maximum grant, because that would maybe be clearer for everybody. And I don't know whether this is the way to set that, but the more I look at this list, the more I think we need to be clearer for expectations when people are applying as well.
So from what I'm gathering, this list is quite small about the people that are waiting to see what happens with all this new funding. So I think that once people work out what's in here and that they can get funding, it could end up as a high school fund or
Yeah.
a school fund. So what are you looking at?
okay.
Like 500 and 200. I mean, I'm coming up with figures, but what would you like
Like
to
a
do?
200 for individuals, 500 max for teams,
Yeah,
something like that. Which would mean we'd have to go back and revisit the jump down one.
Go back, which
but
we can- that's not a problem.
Mm.
It's just if you think that's the right thing to do, because I thought today would be a bit of a shakedown on how we feel as a committee.
Mm.
And it's something that once we have made that decision, we want to stick to.
for example, I'm sorry for jumping ahead, but I'm looking at this application for the hockey. Then I'm looking at the other two, which are both Lincoln High School, and then we've got Lincoln Primary for Tournament of Minds, one at the primary level and one at the high school. Now they're extra curriculum, so they claim that they're not involved in the school curriculum. But then we've got 9 people wanting to attend at the primary school level, and we're looking at a recommendation of 2,000. Then you actually go to the high school level and we've got 14 and the recommendation is 2,000. Now that to me, I've written is not equitable. So,
But even in the past, we used to have, it didn't matter how big the team was, the maximum amount was 1,500.
Yes.
So that's actually still just a follow on. It's just different numbers because this is a new panel and it's a new fund and it's staff trying to figure their way through just as much as we're trying to figure our way through in a very wordy fashion right now.
Well, I believe that it's $500 and $200. Do I have a seconder?
Yep.
Okay.
I'll agree with that. So
Okay.
we're looking at 200 for individuals.
Yep.
And we're looking at 500 for a team.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favour?
I,
Okay.
so
Carried.
shall we go back and
We'll start
actually
from the beginning again.
start again? Because now we've got some parameters around
Yes.
the funding.
Yeah.
The funding request and
Okay.
the model.
Thank you. Welcome.
Patience, anybody watching or those taking minutes?
Yes.
That's a good idea. I think we'll add that into that fund schedule, those two amounts, so that it's clear and it's there
Yes.
in the future
Yeah.
as well. So
Yes.
I think it's got to clear it
It's
up.
the expectations
No,
part, I think.
thanks for that.
And I think we've had a fair discussion overall. We're looking at the overall.
Yeah.
And how we're going to go back and reassess them. So
Well,
accurate policy.
yeah, this is our first meeting to come up with any criteria that we don't see, that we haven't seen in the past or anything. And
Right.
by looking at these, we can get some ideas of where we're going. So
Yeah.
I think that that would be a good move and that would be fair to everyone in the long run. If this gets oversubscribed, which it's bound to, I would
Yeah.
believe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So we'll go back to the Aylesbury Rockers.
Okay,
so
so
that is
I'll move 500.
500.
I'll
I'll second that.
you move that and I'll second it. All those in favour, against carried. Hamish
Okay.
Henderson.
That's 200.
Yep.
Seconded.
Okay. Hugo Wiggle,
It's 200.
200. And
Yep, seconding.
seconded Sophie. All those in favour, against
Aye.
carried. Joe Coxon,
200.
and I'll second that. All those in favour, against carried.
Aye.
And Lara,
No.
No.
no, that's out. Lincoln High,
500.
500.
yes. And Lincoln Primary,
That'll be 500.
500.
Yep.
Do you have a mover and second, because we can,
Sorry, I'll move the,
Deborah and.
Yep.
Sophie.
we've got Lincoln Primary.
Marilyn. Oh, yeah. Would be, we can look at that one.
I moved 200 as an
Okay.
individual.
Yeah.
And Deborah second that. All those
It's a
in favour?
worthwhile, we haven't discussed this one, but I think it's a worthwhile thing for her to
Okay.
go to.
Mohammed. It's,
Alabama, so
Yep.
that is 200 as an individual.
yes, I'll move that. Do I have a seconder?
Okay,
Sophie, all those in favour? It's carried. Norwich went $500, we're down to 200.
Yes.
Yep. And just clarity for that one, so Nevere has applied previously to the Rolleston Discretionary Fund, and we did a bit of back and forth to try and work out whether she was applying as part of a team or as an individual. And I think we've ended up settling down that they are a team, but they're doing individual fundraising, which is extremely weird, to be honest, when I see a dance troupe going and doing something like that. But that's how that one's panned out.
Yeah. And thanks, Sophie, for the history as this comes up. You've been on the committee, so it's good to read reviews as it comes up. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm terrible at trying to give context to everything.
So just in light of what Sophie has brought up, can we actually have a note by some of these applications that they've applied it so they don't apply again? So they're not double dipping under a teams or a individual?
Yeah, we'll
Yeah.
keep note of who's applied, yes.
That's part of the plan to keep track of everything
Yes.
now, and why we've got a panel rather than
Yeah.
several committees.
I mean, would it be at the stage that you actually put the names of teams into the application?
Yeah. Because some
Names
don't
that
put
are
their names of
applying, or
as
is
who's
that
actually
going too far?
attending.
So with regarding Nevere's team, the rest of the kids in that group are actually in Christchurch. She's the only one in Selwyn.
Okay. Yeah. And Roma is down to 200 as well.
Mhm.
I'll move that. Deborah seconded it. All those in favour? You've got something, Deborah?
No, I'm quite happy.
Okay, all those in
Aye.
favour?
Aye.
Carried. We go to Sophie. Sophia. Yeah, and I'll second that. All those in favour? It's
Aye.
carried. No comments. Susanna Tully.
Yep.
It's the same.
200.
And to Rahusa Rio, 750.
Now, why is this one proposed as a jump jam to have 750 when it's a team, so it'll be 500?
Well, because that was before we'd made the
That's before.
guideline.
Yeah,
So,
The last one.
yep, yep. So that will be the team's 500.
Yep.
Okay, I'll move that to have seen Sophie.
Yep.
All those in favour, against, carried. Thank you.
Right.
Now we go on to 8, which is for the Natural Environment Fund. Any conflicts of interest?
No.
Confirmation of financial statement.
Now
We have
find that one.
58,000. Yeah, 58,000. Okay, we accept the
The
funding.
computer's a bit slow at the
move
moment.
that.
Okay, Sophie, and I'll second that. All those in favour? That's carried. Thank you. Confirmation, not the fact we've done that. Correspondence, no correspondence. And we're considering application, which we've received one, which was for Alice Shanks, QE2 Trust, and it's for $20,000.
Yep, I'd like to move that one.
Deborah, do you want to second that?
Yeah, no, I'll second that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Do we need any words from our expert in residence?
Thank you.
You right with that, Deborah?
What with the
For the,
SNF fund?
yes,
Yeah, no, I'm fine
Okay.
with that.
all those in favour, against carried. Thank you. And general business, is anyone, any general business?
I have a question around the application form that we've got and the policy for this fund, in that there are a few exclusions and various things that are listed in the policy, but there's nowhere in the form asking people whether they've read it and whether they actually meet the criteria. Like, for instance, one of the criteria is that you shouldn't be an employee of council. There's nothing that asks them whether or not they're like, if you're applying and you haven't actually looked at the policy, you wouldn't even know that that was an exclusion.
Yeah.
And that's just me picking one thing out. I'm just wondering if there's a way that we can add that in there, because I don't really want to fall foul of our own policy here.
Good point.
And I have been working with the legal team around a declaration at the end of all of the forms, so saying something along those lines.
Cool.
I have read the policy, so after this meeting, we'll start to implement changing the forms to meet the new policy and the funding schedules as well.
Thank you very much.
Have you got anything, Deborah?
No.
No, the only thing as I said before, I'd like to see the non-diligent. And I've talked to
Yeah.
Denise about that today, and she said
That would
be
that
going
would
on.
make it easy.
You know, I think the big thing is the community is saying to keep the forms as simple as we can and as generic as we possibly can. And I'm wondering about, I've had a couple of people, or one at a meeting last night, saying when we've got it and when we've done whatever we do, what does council request of us? And I really haven't got that in my mind, exactly what we're asking for now. Do they have to do a?
Yeah, so each of the funds, once they've been spent or within 1 year of receiving the funding, is a report. So showing how the funds were spent. And there'll be some data collection on that as well, which we're updating. So number of volunteer hours, number of volunteers and things like that. So we get some information about the community work that's being done as well in regards to these organisations.
And have we policed that in the past? Or are we going?
Some funds have required that in the past and some funds haven't. So as part of this project is making it all consistent for all the funds. Yeah.
No, that's good.
What about unspent funds?
So the new policy says that if it's under 100, it doesn't need to be returned, but anything over $100 needs to be returned. And then if an applicant wants to change the purpose of the funding or potentially keep it for another year to spend on the same project, they would need to formally request that and the committee would need to approve that. So we'd bring that to the next meeting as required.
And that's quite clear about no funding retrospective projects.
Correct. The Rural Travel Fund, we are looking at changing the dates because a lot of the teams for the Rural Travel Fund struggle with when they apply having a draw and knowing where they're travelling to. So that would be the only one that people could apply in retrospect once they know where they've travelled and that information provided is then all correct. But for all other funds, yeah, they must apply in advance.
Sophie?
Nope, that's pretty good.
And the other thing is, none of this funding is carried over to the next year, is it? All the funding,
No,
like
it must-
the 58,000 at the end of the year, if there's whatever's left.
Yeah, it must all be allocated in the financial year.
I don't think we're in any great danger of having unspent funds.
We did with the Heritage Fund last time.
Mm.
Yeah. You know, so, and that was a conscious decision of the panel.
Mhm.
Okay. If there's no more general business, closing Karakia.
Ready here.
Start.
Would here.
Yeah.
Te
Paraku, te pau,
kia
wātea,
kia
wātea,
ai,
ko wātea.
Thank you everyone for your time, and especially thanks to the staff. I mean, there's a huge amount of work's gone into
Yeah,
this, and it's great to see it's actually coming to fruition, because I think there's been a lot of anomalies for a lot of years, and it's nice to see it just all in one place. And it's like having Sophie, as having